First of all, warmly welcome to everyone, each one of you. Entrepreneurs, business angels, innovators, investors, incubator managers, and TTO managers, and followers. Warmly welcome. We stream this event, and there is groups following us on the west coast and in the northern part of Norway. So warmly welcome to you also, following us through the streaming link. Today, we will especially focus on the new capital service, pre-seed capital or matching capital. It's been a lot of interest, a lot of attraction on that new service that's emerged in the state budget for 2016. And this new service didn't just happen all of a sudden. There's been a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of discussions and intense debates to work this through. And there's been hard work from Abelia and from the entrepreneurs and from the investors and from Innovasjon Norway and a lot of others, and from the Norwegian there's been a lot of people involved doing this, making this come through and realizing this new capital service. And Innovasjon Norway arranged dream commitment events all over the nation the last year. And there were 3,500 people involved and a lot of input. And this dream commitment events ended up in a report that was handed over to the government, and that was a part of the input from Innovasjon Norway to the government when they launched the plan for entrepreneurship a month ago. Have you seen this report? Yes, some of you have seen it. It's about capital, it's about competence, and it's about culture for entrepreneurship. And we are very happy that the government also follows up with all-time high budget for startups in the budget 2016. So there should be a possibility to do something the next year. Today we will focus on capital, competence, and meeting places, because there is 100 million Norwegian kroner in the state budget that's meant to meet startups in a stage where there is very little capital available today. This 100 million are shared in two parts. One part is meant to the companies that are in connection with the incubators and the technology transfer offices. The other part is for companies that's not connected to the TTOs or the incubators. But all in all, it's 100 million kroner. And I will now present very briefly to you how this new service are set up. And I'll have to tell you that it's not all decided yet. It's not all sorted yet. And that's why we invited you, so you can share your opinion and so that you can also give input before we decide everything. There's been a lot of attention to this new service. And that's a signal to us that this is it's relevant for you. It's relevant for a lot of groups of people. It's relevant for the startups, it's relevant for the business angels, is relevant for the innovation hubs and the incubators and the technology transfer offices. And that's good, because if we put our forces and our strength together, we can develop something rocking new. So the aim of the new pre-seed capital is, of course, to make the startups investor ready, to make them ready to get larger amount of investment from investors, from seed capital or venture or others. But at the same time, we would like to develop the innovation hubs, the incubators and the technology transfer offices, because when they get more money to invest, they also will have more interesting projects to work with. That's the way we're thinking. And we think that this might also develop the ecosystem around the business angels, because they've got someone to share the risk with them. So it will stretch their money more and make them able to invest in more projects. Does that sound reasonable? Yeah? You're nodding your head, so thank you. And the target group, as I said, is of course the startups, innovative startups with growth ambitions, because this capital service will be used in the stage where they are preparing for growth. So they have to have these growth ambitions. And it should be used to prepare the growth phase. And it has to be young, small enterprises that can apply for this kind of money. Yes, there is a question.
What type of investment sizes are you looking at?
Pardon?
What type of investment are you looking at? Are you looking at like 500,000, 1 million, 10 million? What type of size?
Yes.
Young, small enterprises.
Yes.
In growth phase, but in terms of investment size.
Yes. I'll come to that. The investment should be, I can say, it's from the pre-seed fund, or it's not a fund, sorry, it's a loan actually. From the pre-seed capital, there will be size 1 to 3 million, and that should be matched with a business angel investment, yes. So as I said, 100 million. What can we do with 100 million? We can double it, yes, that's right. And as I said, the 100 million are shared in two parts. One that will go through the TTOs and the incubators, and one that's targeted to companies that's not involved with TTO and incubators. So it's an open part, the 50 million. But what we will do is that we will announce both parts on our website so that TTOs and incubators might apply to manage the 50 millions. That's their part of the share. And the other part will also be announced. And actually, we're a bit excited who will apply for managing that part of the money. Probably there will be network of business angels, but there might also be others that's trained with investments, trained with business development, and trained with following up businesses, startups. And the criteria to apply is that you have to have a deal flow. Of course, you have to have projects. You have to have some projects in pipeline, but you have also to have some experiences from working with companies in this kind of investments. You should have knowledge on investments, knowledge on business development, and knowledge on investments. It might also be sector-specific knowledge that's crucial for the startups that you could have. And you should also have, as I said, investments experience. So that's the way it's going to be. And the capital will be lent out from Innovation Norway to the one that should manage it. And they will invest it as equity capital in the startups and match it with private business angel or other capital. So this is just to illustrate how we're thinking what stage the capital will be available for the startups. We have the startup grants, and then in the stage after, as I said, when you prepare for growth, there is very little capital available, and then is when you can have pre-seed capital. There will be an interest-free loan from Innovation Norway to the one that will manage the capital. It shall be invested as equity capital in the startups, and the payback is when you do the exit. And the criteria is there should be a small and young enterprise, 1 to 3 million from the pre-seed capital, to be matched 50-50 with an external private capital. And there is also an aim that it should be competent capital. So that is extremely important, that we don't just provide capital to the startups, they should also get competence. And the founders' interest should be taken care of, and also, of course, the business angels' interest, but that seems to be more easy, because they're taking care of their interests as they are experienced with investments in startups. So, but both shall be taken care of and safeguarded. Do you have any questions? Yes? And now there will be someone providing you a microphone. Some of the questions you can save till the panel discussions, but if there is something that's not clearly, please.
Yeah, just a clarification.
Yes.
When you say that money will be invested in equity, what do you mean by that? Does that mean that the fund will purchase a stake in the new company based on what they think it is worth?
Yes.
Like the TV show Dragon's Den, where the billionaires buy 10% for, say, £100,000 because that's what they think it's worth?
The money from Innovation Norway will be lent out to incubators, TTOs, and other networks, and they will invest it. So Innovation Norway will not be owners, but the one that borrow the money from Innovation Norway, they will invest it, and they will be owners. Yes. Good. Yes, Thomas. The mic.
Of the 50 million, out of those, will there be someone that will be managing the whole amount for others, or will there be someone? Do you understand?
Yes,
yeah.
Very good question. Thank you for reminding me, because that's important. We think that there will be 5 to 8 TTOs and incubators, and I think there will be, well, 5, 6, 7 groups managing the other part.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks. Can these other groups, the non-TTOs, can they pre-apply for this funding, or do they apply for this loan when they have an investment ready?
Yeah, that's important too, because there will be an announcement on our website with a deadline, and those who apply before the deadline will be the one to manage the capital. Yes. So it's not a running process through all the year. It's an announcement with a deadline. Yes.
I just have one question. What happens? You say that the money will be paid back through exits.
Yes.
What happens if there's no successful exits?
Good question. Yes. As I said, there is an interest-free loan. And as you're right, the payback is when there's done an exit. And if the project fails, there will be no payback. So it's a soft loan.
The business angel group will have to, the fund will have to pay back the loan.
No. And the business angel will lose their money as well. Yes, so it's equal. We're in it with the equal stake. It's a yes.
I just have a question regarding because I mean you want to stimulate all industries, right?
Yes.
Cross industries. So you want to go into fashion. You want to go into agriculture. Yeah. But how do you make sure that that investors goes into the different industries, so they don't end up in finance and real estate or oil and gas, or you know what I mean, these traditional industries, that they actually go in for the little bit more crazy new thinking ideas?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure if I have the fully answer, but of course this is for all industries, as long as there is growth ambitions and there is innovation. And well, it's a good question. We should consider that, how we can get this spread. Yes? Ola?
Yeah, I guess it's pretty new companies, since it's maximum a few years old, and then it's a small amount. So it's to go into the oil or to the real estate business with 1 or 2 million, then you have to buy a flat in some eastern parts of the city. So that's one thing about that. I just want to ask a question when it comes to the application for this money. So you said about 5 to 10 different companies, and they will get the money. And then how long time do they have to spend the money for this?
Yeah, thank you. How long time you will have to spend the money? Of course, we would like this money to be invested in companies and not be on a bank account. So we would say 12 till 18 months. And if they're not invested, they will go back and be part of the next announcement.
Hello. So the networks and organizations that get to be managers, are they supposed to be neutral manager for any takers, or is it internally they invest it in their internal network?
Yeah, well, might be different kind of groups. You can apply as a single company or groups of networks of companies. So that's not sorted yet. So I like to hear your opinion when we start the debate. Yes. Okay then. Yeah, there's more questions.
One more question.
Yes?
I'm wondering, how detailed are the usage guidelines? For instance, some people might just apply so that they can quit their jobs and get a salary for a year, and that's what they want to spend the money on. Others will want to develop a technology for which they can't possibly have estimated exact costs. I'm wondering, how strong are the guidelines for how this money will be spent?
Yeah. You mean how it will be, the company they will be invested in, or the companies
Yes,
who manage?
the funds before they are paid out. Is there a list of guidelines of what they have to be spent on?
Yes. Actually, this is not a fund. This is money lent from Innovation Norway to the one who will invest it. and there is guidelines. There has to be innovation. There has to be the stage where they've already developed what they are planning, and they're preparing for growth.
So post-prototype.
Yes. Good. I think we are about to get ready for the panel discussion. Are you ready for that?
Yep.
Yeah? So then I will introduce the panel, and we will have some chairs up front here. Yes.
Another question. What's the deadline? When are you going to go out into the market with these products? The product, when is the deadline for applying?
That's not sorted or decided yet. We have to have
Next year?
during next year. I think first quarter of
First quarter.
yeah. I'd like to announce it in January, but I'm not sure that we're ready that fast. But as soon as we are ready, we will announce it, and the deadline will be then quite shortly after. Yes. The first one I'd like to invite to join the panel is Daniel Ras Vidal. You are the director of FINN, which is the Norwegian Association for Innovation Enterprises. And the members of your association are incubators, TTOs, clusters, and early stage capital. So who could be more the right person for joining this panel than you, Daniel? And you have also been working very hard on behalf of your members to make this capital come through and be realized. And I think you would like to inform us and tell us something about that.
Is this on? Yeah? Okay. Basically, we did a very simple analysis. It was really simple because a lot of people agreed back 2-3 years ago that there was a severe shortage of capital for potential growth companies. And nobody actually seemed to be doing anything about it. And no one actually made a concrete kind of proposition to the politicians that they should implement a new scheme that would activate private capital and put this capital in the hands of competent people that are professionally already working on developing more companies. So we saw that there was a kind of a hole within the public political decided system. So what we did, we kind of just announced the pre-seed idea at a conference in May 2014, and kind of quickly we got some interest from especially the Liberal Party here in Norway, and we kind of went around to all the parties and introduced the idea, and they caught on to it, and they got through the parliament in December. They got a little bit of a writing somewhere and late at night during negotiations. And in the end, also the two parties in the government became interested in this. So in June, the first 40 million came, and now with the Gründerplan, the entrepreneur plan, we got 100 million. So basically, for us, it was really important that the scheme would be open for everyone to apply on, because we think that the private organizations are the best to kind of select and take the companies from the startup phase to the scale-up phase, because that's the problem in Norway. We have a lot of startups, but we need more scale-ups that actually grow and do well internationally. And the way we have been seeing it the past few years, since like 2012, there's actually a lot of things happening in Norway. A lot of positive things happening with the entrepreneurship space. But the capital is still, there's an article today in Dagens Næringsliv that show that we still have some issues with the capital, and we have a lot of ideas how to make it better. And I think this scheme here is one important step, is one start, but it's not everything that should be done. There are a lot of other things that should be done as well, especially with the venture space. And also, the government should really look into tax incentives. They should look into how they tax. The wealth tax, for example, is very stupid, to put it mildly. There are a lot of things to do, but I think there's a lot of positive attention, and I think this is a good start. So I'm not going to say anything more than just to welcome the other people up in the panel.
Thank you. And the next to join the panel is Rikke Eckhoff Høvding. You are CEO at the Norwegian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association. And the association's members range from seed funds, venture funds, and buyout funds. Warmly welcome.
Hello, so thank you for inviting me. As you said, my name is Rikke, and I head up the Norwegian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association. I'm actually in the 4th week on the job. So you might ask, what's she doing here with her notes in Norwegian? Well, our association has worked for several years to secure that there's a functioning value chain. So our members range from seed funds to venture funds to buyout funds, but it's extremely important to us that there's also something happening before seed funds. If not, our members would not have any companies to invest in. So a lot of our suggestions that have been presented, or some of them are shared with Abelia, which have done a fantastic effort in securing that we now have this matching capital. A key point for the association is that we have private investors. Private investors that select the companies and that contribute not only with their capital, but with their interest, their passion, and their competence. We need private investors to sort of be door openers for entrepreneurs and to help them develop businesses. A question was raised here, I think it was you, regarding the sectors. And if we have one worry about how this matching capital arrangement will work, is that we're doing really well in oil services and in tech. There's many investors in that space and many ideas. But there's a lot happening outside those two sectors. And what we would love to see is a spread of innovation and a spread of investments across sectors. So if anyone has any ideas on how to secure that happening in this new venture capital, matching capital, I think those suggestions would be very welcome. Other than that, I think just the fact that we have an entrepreneurship plan from the government is a big wow, and nothing short of great. Despite, some might argue that it has its shortcomings, but it's still a wonderful thing that we're now sort of putting entrepreneurship on the agenda. Also, what we've seen outside the association is that there are groups and networks, cheering on business angels. There's the Angel Challenge. There's the angel networks everywhere, and I think we just want to applaud that from our venture and private equity seats, that those are extremely important initiatives. So, thank you.
And then I'd like to welcome Kjartan Slette. You are the co-founder and the COO at Unacast. And Unacast powers the world's largest network of proximity data, and this will enable brands and retailers to retarget customers online based on offline behavior. Yeah, that's amazing. Yes. And you're also a serial founder. So you've been involved in startups several times already. Welcome.
Thank you. Very nice description. It is as I should have written it myself, which I did.
Which you did.
Yeah. So I'm also quite new to the job. 14 months in building a company. Not sure if I should be here talking about how to build a company. Too soon, perhaps. We did fail miserably with our latest company, our last company, WIMP, title that was sold for pennies to JC. So at least I felt very close to my heart what not to do, how not to raise capital, how not to build an organization, how not to scale globally, and how not to sell way too early. And like that's symptomatic for a lot of Norwegian companies. We sell as soon as somebody knocks on the door. We're so flattered by the knocking itself that we just throw our IPs and companies after people. I will come back to that later. The reason I'm here today is quite unsure, because I'm not a company that could ever get that money. Sadly, perhaps. And we're also at the phase where we're above the need for such money. Luckily, perhaps. We need something quite different. And perhaps we will touch upon that during the session, but let's stay with the topic for now. My worry was when I first heard about this, and just to be clear about that, I'm generally very positive about what's happening in Norway right now. Very positive. I see that we are on the verge on what has happened in Sweden and to less extent in Finland. And I can see it. I can see it with my own eyes, because I see the international investors now looking into what we're doing. They're actually flying in to meet us. Not because they have a specific agenda, not because they are in a DD process, but because they want to see what's going on. And I think that's going to catch a lot of Norwegian investors by surprise. As the DN article today stated, we're all moving to the right. We're all moving upstream investment-wise in Norway. But the international investments and investors are not. They're moving downstreams. I had one concern, and again, very positive in nature. I had one concern. And at the start of this program, it seemed that all of the money was going into the established ecosystems, into the TTOs and into the incubators. And that is potentially very, very dangerous, because these environments in themselves are startups. Most of them don't have a effing clue about what they're doing. And they are in competition with each other. They are fighting for governmental grants, for exposure in DN, for startups. So they have a very, very limited viewpoint on the success of the startup nation. They want to first and foremost build themselves through the companies attached to their ecosystem. That means that you will have a very, very, very important job in selecting these environments, so you're sure that the money goes to the companies that need them and to the companies that Norway needs. That was my initial concern. Now it has been opened up somewhat, so half of the amount is going to actual business angels. That's better, but there's still some concerns. And again, very, very positive in general. It is way better that this money goes out into the marketplace than at some bureaucrat in an office in one kind of geographical location in Norway. But a company like Unacast, when we were at the stage when we needed this money, have to define our own financial structure. If you gravitate towards environments that have more capital because of certain governmental grants, they might not be the best investor for my specific company. I would like to see a third option here, where it was the company that could bring investors to the program. Who is better to select my investor than myself? And I'm not saying this will happen, and by carefully selecting the environments and who gets to govern this money, it can be avoided, but we need to think about it. I actually have, I'm also a blogger by accident, and today I've moved from one blogging entity to another, from E24 to DN, so it's a hostile takeover. And my first article, which is published today, is called "Norway is not an entrepreneurial nation." And we must not forget that, even though we are kind of all caught up into this positive virtuous cycle, which is good. Again, I'm general very positive. We don't have the experience, the means, the balls in a non-gender way to actually deploy this money in the smartest way possible. So there's a lot of pressure on Innovation Norway to make sure this money is carefully placed. And I'm not sure that all of this can be avoided, but we at least should dare to take the discussion. We're not very good at this. We're very young. We have to be very, very careful about how we deploy money. And Innovation Norway has had examples of putting hundreds of millions of kroner out into environments where, in my opinion, they have not been deployed in the best and the smartest way possible. So again, very, very positive, but just look out and be diligent about what we're not necessarily accomplishing here. And to sum up, it does not help the real growth companies like myself. And the way the money is deployed might indicate there's some blind spots, both in the environments fighting for their own survival and the angels being very young and immature themselves and not necessarily fitting the best startups. And I want to end with, and this took a very long time, and that's something you learn as a new company, to take every piece of stage time. And this is an anecdote. It's not necessarily attributable to this, but it's an interesting anecdote. We were, or rather, there was an opportunity for Norwegian companies to be selected to front Norway at a convention abroad in a more advanced innovation country. I'm trying to be non-specific, so it can't be traced back. And then there was a selection process. And in that selection process, a lot of the environments were debating amongst themselves on who should represent Norway on this stage in a broad country for foreign investors. And since I have also co-founded something called Mashup, I was also kind of part of that discussion, not debating, but listening in, so I could see the discussion going on. And in that discussion, quote, it was raised that perhaps Unacast should not participate because they have been so visible already. And that might be true. It might be so that others need it more. It might be so that we're not good enough to be on that stage. But if we as a nation, startup nation, start to think about this in a democratic way, we should not send the best skier to the Olympic Games because he won or she won last year or 4 years ago. Then we are in a very dangerous position. I think for me, that's for the first time, my eyes were really, really forcefully open to that the environment itself is in fierce competition. And we need to find ways of trying to minimize that effect so that we actually get the best companies out there. Because what is going to give the best effect for the startup nation is that some companies actually succeed, actually sell their company for a shitload of money, become role models, and invest that money back into the system. That is by far the most important thing we can do. And we have to then discuss with open eyes and with the risk of offending each other how we do that the best.
Thank you. So then we will open up for questions, input, and as I hope you have understood that everything's not sorted yet. So this is the opportunity to bring something new in, if you like, and also to ask questions to the panel. Yes, there is a question there.
Yes. Thank you for the presentation, guys. My question is, I think that what's been happening in Oslo and the startup scene in general in Norway has been improving a lot the last 2-3 years. Before that, it was kind of nothing was really happening, at least from my experience. Now things are finally changing, but I think that the biggest challenge in Norway is it's a cultural problem. It's basically a little bit what you were saying, that we don't really have the role models, we don't really have the success factors, and also the whole mentality of paying it back. It's quite different when you talk with a Norwegian VC compared to an American VC. The whole topic is totally different. And I think that, I guess that the hope is that this type of scheme and strategy will, in a way, loosen up the culture and build it up. But do you think that it will do that, or what do you think the effect will be? Basically, the question is, will this scheme improve the culture, the startup culture in Norway, or will it be the same, or will it go the other way?
Yeah, which one of you would like to answer that? Daniel?
Well, I think we have been really clear about one thing, that the main kind of job for Innovation Norway is actually, to select good people to actually handle this money. I don't agree necessarily that all my members are incompetent.
I didn't say that.
No, but it sounded a little bit like it.
That's your interpretation.
No, but I see what you mean, and of course there is a competition between the different organizations, for sure. But our hypothesis was that some of them are actually quite good at both developing the companies, and some of them are actually experienced in investing as well. So they could form this link. But the whole thing with the scheme is to make the diversity stronger. And that goes, both TTOs and incubators, or business angel networks, or smaller investment companies. And I'm sure that they will invest within not only oil and gas and tech. For sure, fashion, retail is actually kind of big sector in Norway, which is not very well known. But if you look at the 500 biggest companies in Norway, there are actually quite a few retail companies on that list. So I think that this will diversify the ecosystem, the financial ecosystem, quite a bit. But it's extremely important, and that's why we have been really clear that there needs to be set some criteria, and there needs to be an open call, so you can actually, attract the most competent people. So, like I said in the beginning, this is a start, and we're experimenting a bit. So it might be that we need to change, some things with this scheme next year, and then a year after that. But it was, in my opinion, it was important that someone actually did something, because there was a lot of talk, and no one actually did propose something that was possible to implement. And that's too sad that we should be sitting there and not doing anything, especially with all this positive attention. And as for culture, I would say that culture, that is us, everyone, investors, entrepreneurs, support organizations, everyone, and this money that is coming now is very soft loans. So it's nice money. So I would recommend that everyone is nice with them, with that money. No, but for sure with entrepreneurs, and actually, don't be draconian with this money, and actually treat the entrepreneurs wisely. And also, I agree with you that in the later stage, in the growth phase, in the international phase, we also have a problem, which is highlighted a little bit with this article today. We should, my proposition there is that we should have a fond, like a Argentum, but in the venture phase. They're actually doing that in Sweden now, starting up a company that will be investing in venture funds, because they have had the same problem actually. We should do that as well, and then we can, sort out the next phase too, and make the system stronger there as well.
Thank you. Rikke?
Just before I answer your question, just one point on the Norwegian venture scene. what the article today, for those of you who haven't read it, in Dagens Næringsliv, the Norwegian business paper, what was presented was a report made by the Nordic Venture Network. That's comprised of the leading venture firms in the Nordic countries. So they've tracked all their investments in 515 portfolio companies, and they show that the Nordic venture firms have actually made an index since 2000 up till 2014, shows that the return has been 13%. So everyone talking down Norwegian venture and Nordic venture, they're completely in the wrong. It is possible to make money on Nordic venture. So what we're hoping is that this data will prove this point and attract more fund investors into Nordic venture funds. Because what we see now, there's a lot happening on the seed and pre-seed stage, but we also need the venture funds. So we have all the buyout funds, but the venture funds also need capital in order to invest and remain the very good sort of environments that they are. And then to your questions about culture. I think you're actually pointing to the answer in your question, because a few years ago, nothing was happening on the new Oslo startup scene. And now, just a few years later, there's a lot happening. And I think we need to be as patient with changing the culture on the investor side, because I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs here in the room. Hopefully, in a few years, you'll come back here as investors, and you'll be business angels and professional investors. And this culture takes a while to change. And we have great entrepreneurs and great sort of innovation in a few sectors in Norway. And if we can use that knowledge to invest and develop companies in other sectors as well, that'd be brilliant. There's a startup lab that's sitting, Founders Fund is sitting right here. They're doing it. So I think there'll be many more to come. Don't you think?
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
And it's actually equally your task as mine. Everyone needs to contribute. Culture is not decided by Innovation Norway and then trickle down. It's you and me that pushes it upward. So we have to. I've seen that becoming better this last year only. That people need to get better at storytelling, to share, paying it forward. Of course, one-to-one sharing what you learned about everything from stock option pools to how to raise money, but also to dare to say externally what you're doing and what you didn't do very well and what you did do well. And now we have DN, now we have E24, and all of the environments themselves. I think you are the best, actually, to storytell on behalf of your members. Oh, you. Yeah, you. This is the thing I'm least concerned about. This will happen, and it's already happening. You just need to accelerate it.
And I think if I can just ask one thing, from all the entrepreneurs here who are going to come back as big shot investors, invest in startups. Don't buy real estate. Don't do what all the old people we know do. Become venture investors. Yeah. Please.
Okay. Now we have 3 others that will contribute. Welcome.
Hello.
Yeah.
It's on. Yeah. My name is Andrew, and it's been very interesting to listen to you guys. I'm both what you're saying, investor and startup, but I don't know how many people have been to South by Southwest. Anybody been to South by Southwest? Okay. It's quite interesting when I see, when I'm listening to you guys, especially the people you're representing in different organizations. I have one major question. How come in the different scenes I've been to here in Norway that I don't see any major investors showing up? Because the biggest boy in the club in South by Southwest now is Goldman Sachs. And after that is McDonald's, etc. And Goldman Sachs has just been sent to South by Southwest because their investors, in which are high net worth individuals or actually funds, because they're looking for the next unicorn, etc. And they're seeing that we need to get nitty gritty and we're going to jump over the VC companies actually and do the job ourselves. So my question is, why is not DNB here? Why isn't Ferd here? I mean, they might be here, etc. I don't really see them. So is it something the organization can work on? Say, you high net worth people, get your ass down here and...
I'm going to write that down, get your ass.
Daniel?
I think it's a good question. I think that, I mean, one thing is the big financial players like Goldman Sachs or the Norwegian counterparts, but another thing is actually big Norwegian companies. And I think we're starting to see at least some more interest from them to the startup scene.
Yep.
And actually going into a more deeper cooperation effort with startups. And they're probably doing that out of self-interest because they see that things are moving rapidly and technological shifts are happening so quickly. So if they don't actually, you know, have their finger on the pulse somewhere, they might miss out and they might be actually out of business, some of them. I was recently in Berlin and we visited the management school there, the university. It was actually really interesting because they started up like a kind of like it was called GTech, German Tech Entrepreneurship Center, and they had a collaboration with the Techstars as well. So they're starting up like an accelerator. But we asked them who's financing this, and it was actually two private foundations and two private companies. And one was an energy company, and we asked them why do they do this? Are they altruistically interested in just supporting the startup scene or what? And no, he said that they are an energy company, and they've realized that they can't probably, you know, sell electricity in the same way in 5 years that they have been doing for 100 years. So if they don't actually support this scene and invest in some of these companies, and this was a big German electricity company, utility company, they're going to miss out. So and again, Startup Lab, you have attracted some interest from Telenor and Møllergruppen and some other you know, big players in Norway, or relatively big at least. So I think it's a matter of becoming attractive as a company or as a startup environment, and you know, make that happen. Because if a small company gets his first customer or maybe investor or cooperation partner, that's a great thing for both parties. So it's like a Kinder egg.
Yeah. So I have a very naive way of looking at these things, and it's of course not entirely true, but I see the market as hyper efficient. Meaning that investments will find its way to the best companies. It might be some structural hindrances now here and there, which we're discussing today, but in general that happens, and the world is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So the reason why these companies aren't looking in, why Goldman Sachs are not in Norway, why the big VCs from the UK and from US aren't kind of, until now, recently, looking into this Norway, is that the companies are too shit. And the founders are too inexperienced. We sell the companies too early. There's no reason. There's no reason to go there. So we must, and this is typical for a lot of Norwegian debates in all kind of social layers or various industries, is that we look for structural reasons for why it's not happening. The main reason is that I, myself, did not succeed with WIMP. That's the main reason. We started about the same time as Spotify. We fundraised less. We hired more poorly. We released in less countries. We used balls in a non-gender way. And we were completely bypassed. Why would any investor want to put money into that instead of Spotify? So I have, again, very naive belief that the market is hyper-efficient. The best companies will get funding some way or another, and they will succeed, and slowly the nation will follow, very, very slowly. But we can't expect that it starts with Goldman Sachs hopping on a plane to Oslo Innovation Week. It's slightly more complicated.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tor Bekkelund. I used to be a business angel, but I also sold a few companies before to the US. And I was a part of starting up Startup Lab and managing Founders Fund. And we have helped 140 companies over the last course of 3 years, and 50% of them are still growing. And the Founders Fund invested in 17 of those, for those who read Finansavisen yesterday. I have a different perspective. If you have a longer perspective in Norway, I think Norway is the most creative and most successful country in Europe. But I'm older than you guys, so I have that perspective, and God bless. But I remember when I did my master thesis at NTNU, the barrel of oil was $10 at that time, and everyone thought that the oil business would go down the drain. And now you can see what happened. It goes in cycles, right? And I think also you're completely wrong when you think that Norway have no startups. Because if you look in Oslo, I think you're right. But the majority of the innovation in Norway happens along the coast. And I myself, I have friends that build 500 million NOK businesses in 10 years, 5 years, and so on. They really don't care to be a part of the statistics. So if you look upon the complete ecosystem in Norway, we have a success story. We still have. But if you look in the IT business, right, and the media business, the less success and fewer companies. So I think we need to be aware of that perspective, and we don't, have to be sadomasochists and punish ourselves, because Norway is a highly successful country, right?
Agreed.
And going forward, I think that what Innovation Norway is doing is fantastic. I think what you have to do is to make sure that environments, not only in Oslo, but also in Tromsø, Trondheim, Bergen, Stavanger, and wherever you want to put the money, have the opportunity to get that kind of soft money to help companies or startups along the whole of Norway. So the perspective of Oslo, forget it. You have to think about the perspective of Norway. And also what you see now is that there is a lot of activities on startups, not only in Oslo, but in Norway. And also the incubator, I think the perspective of incubators, which you mentioned, is completely wrong. I think there are tons of people working, getting some grants, but not all the grants. Because Innovation Norway have to support and build and help them to become professional investors, the Business Angels Network. But to be able, getting a loan to put into a startup is not enough, because you as a person helping the startup, you need to have some bread on the butter, right? And have something to live for. So you need to help that type of environment, and you need to help that individuals that quit their jobs, right? Take a huge salary cut and pay forward and help these startups. These are the environments you need to support. But it is a fresh idea that you mentioned, that to put it into the companies, go and find the investors. And that brings me to, what is the capital? Where does the capital come from? And I completely agree that, putting capital into bricks and mortar and all the family money is not there, because the venture capital went down the drain in Norway when the financial crisis hit the market. Sweden managed to keep that alive. That's why they're going so great. But also put the perspective of the majority of the unicorns, which is don't look for a unicorn in Norway. That might happen, but if you are an angel investor, you would never find anyone, and it will take you 10 years to find one, right? So you need to put into the companies you believe can become the 50 and 100 million turnover companies, right? But Sweden has got a lot of, let's say, reputation to be a fantastic unicorn factory, mainly because it's on consumer-based. Because a consumer company like Spotify and Wimp, it's much easier to get investors because it's a brand. But if you develop a company in Bergen or Stavanger which do a software as a service enterprise, most of the investors don't understand what that kind of company is doing at all, even if you explain it to them 5-10 times. But they can be world-class in a niche, in a global niche, and succeed. So that's my perspective why Sweden got all this attention. But if you look upon the number of engineers And what we experience when you go to the US with the companies that we help is that they say, Norwegian engineers over-deliver, world-class, and they will stay with the company forever, right? That's what they're looking for, and that's why the talent issue in Silicon Valley is a problem, right? So invest in Norwegian startups is a fantastic opportunity for Norwegian investors, but if they don't want to invest in Norwegian companies, capital doesn't know any borders, so they will come from abroad. So just a comment to bring a little bit of the perspective that you said. I think that point one, Norwegian engineers, Norwegian startups, fantastic, lot of fantastic startups. Capital have no border, so if Norwegian investor doesn't want to invest, we will find other investors. And by the way, we think that, you know, the leading stars in Norway, like Geir Førre, Tano, and so on, we have them, we don't promote them, but they have put capital back to the startups. So that's also something I would like to comment to what you said. So we are on the verge to something. And when I explain what's happening in Oslo, what we are doing to foreign or UK or US-based venture capitalists, they say, wow, we have to come to Norway. So that's exactly what you're saying. But Morgan or JP Morgan and all the big investment banks, we have to have 100 million NOK in turnover to be on the radar. So when you go to the VCs or the private equity funds and so on, just understand that they are very nice. All investors are very nice to you as a startup. They won't say no. They say, come back when you have more turnover. So it's about finding the right investor for your company in where you are in the development of the company. So just to put a little bit more perspective.
I agree on everything you said. Yeah. And in fact is that Norway, and this is something I like to speak about abroad, is that Norway actually has one of them, if not the most successful startup ever in relation to the oil industry. The way we managed to capitalize on that opportunity and build technology and industry around that is unprecedented. It's just the fact that we were both lucky and unlucky now, but mostly lucky that the opportunity was so big, so the whole nation, to be black and white, gravitated towards that one opportunity. But hey, we have done it before. I think we can do it again. And that's why I started today by saying I'm, in general, very, very positive. But my role here today is to say just pumping money into something because money is good is not. We have to think a bit farther than that. Yeah.
Thank you. I also totally agree that we have to make sure that the money will be available all over Norway, because there is a lot going on other places than Oslo. Yes, thank you. We have a few other that would like to.
Thomas Berglund here, former entrepreneur and now lead investor in Angel Challenge, co-founder of that. And I would like to bring back the discussion to what this really is about, the 100 million NOK.
Yes.
I mean, it's not a huge, it's not 1 billion, it's 100 million NOK, don't forget about it. It's a slice of a small fund that we're talking about to give away. I think this is a great initiative because what we really need out there is more feet on the street. We need more people that are actually willing to put their money into startups. And this is an initiative that actually, if that can move 10 or 20 business angels or start 4 or 5 more incubators, that's what the money is supposed to go to. And then that will create a new investment flow into startups. So I see this as fueling a part of the value chain. Let's not forget that. Yep. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Inam Sharif. I have a company called Disrupt Norway. We're a business development, sort of a management consultancy, but for startups, which is really a bad idea, but then somebody's got to do it. Well, my question is, I come from Dubai, and of course, Dubai is full of entrepreneurs. And of course, when you're an entrepreneur in Dubai, you're on your own. There's no now if you lose your job. There's no social or no pension schemes. So you had to be really gutsy to survive. And one of the things coming from a different place and having a different perspective, that I feel Norway is one of the amazing places to be an entrepreneur, because you still got the community and the system which supports you and takes care of you. You always have a roof above your head. You just don't need to commit suicide. So, you know, because that happens in Dubai when people fail. I have families, their families are taken care of, you know, taken in life. So my point is that it's amazing what we're discussing right now, and the money and so on and so forth. But we're forgetting, or at least I feel that we are forgetting something extremely important. Because at the end of the day, money is okay, it's very nice, it's kind of a lubricant to make things happen, but it's the people. Like you said, we have amazing engineers here, top talent, very creative people. So look beyond money. And if there's a lot of people who have lost their jobs, who are top engineers, marketers, and if they could contribute a percentage of their time, invest into a startup, because as you know, if you haven't got a job, you got a lot of time in your hand. And when you look beyond money, like the gentleman here from Startup Lab was telling, but there are some unknown, extremely successful entrepreneurs around Norway, and who have access to certain markets, certain countries, certain technologies, certain methodologies. So if we could have a way of connecting startups to those people who have these ideas, should go beyond money. Because for me, give me $500,000, I can barely afford one developer. But give me 2 developers who don't have jobs, and I'll get much more out of them. Give me a marketing manager or a business strategic guy who's out of a job, and that's way more worth than $1 million in investment. So that's kind of like the point that I want to put across. Thank you.
Yeah, Daniel.
I'd just like to comment that you know, that's a great timing for that now. So I mean, people are losing their jobs. It is getting easy to find really good people. So, and also, you know, this is like you said, just a little slice of the pie coming into this position. But there is also other things happening. So I mean, we are in a very interesting point of time, and it's up to us to make it happen. You know, no one's going to do it for us.
Exactly. And going back to that, it's in the end the entrepreneurs themselves that are responsible for their own success, of course. All of these people that we talk about here, they are more than willing to help. We have Are Tråsdal in New York as a very good mentor. Eirik and Håvard from Trolltech has invested in Unacast. Fantastic resource because they've done this before, exactly the same. Førre, of course, very important for us since it's in the same kind of field of expertise. And these people, I have not had one feedback in my now 14 months as a founder. Not one of them have said no. Not one of them. And on the hiring side, and you're right, and it is a real transformation and transportation from traditional industries in Norway now to more young entrepreneurial ideas. And they're applying in heaps. They are really available. I'm not sure you can get them for half the price, as you insinuated. That's just not the country for that. But they are available, the very, very best heads. And if I could choose between starting a company in Silicon Valley and starting in Oslo, I would 10 out of 10 times started in Oslo. 10 out of 10 times. The engineering resources are cheaper, they are better, they are more loyal, they don't vest and hop and jump ship, and they are increasingly going from, as we stated, from traditional industries to new industries. Funding-wise, you couldn't hope to get cash in Silicon Valley. Yes, there is more cash, but there is also immensely more competition. So from all these metrics, I would choose 10 out of 10 times to be in Oslo. And at the end of the day, if you don't succeed, it was your fault.
Okay, Rikke would also like to...
No, I was just going to comment what you said about the social security system. I think that we forget sometimes that is part of the package. It's what makes it possible to take risk. And I think that when we talk about Innovation Norway, we kind of forget that the Norwegian government also plays a big part of it in that respect. And also what Tor said about all these companies in Norway that are not defined as unicorns, they might not even be known to anyone outside their industry because they're generally like B2B, like business to business. But I think there's a challenge in matching that, not necessarily their money, but their know-how and their experience with young entrepreneurs who are now starting up, or serial entrepreneurs for that matter, and to sort of create. I saw in the government sort of entrepreneur plan, there was 30 million NOK for meeting spots or sort of centers of meetings. How do we spend that money to create or facilitate these interactions and these meetings? I think that is a big challenge, but I think there's a lot to be gained from that. Because as has been said, we've done this in other sectors. Is there any way to transfer that knowledge?
Yes, absolutely. And the 30 million that will be spent to develop the ecosystem, also not only among the business angels, but the ecosystem in total around the startups. And this discussion is much about that, as much as about the matching capital, and that's okay because the ecosystem is extremely important, as has been pointed out several times now. But before we keep the debate going, there is 5 hands up in the room. I'd like to ask you, Rikke, in what way will the matching capital be interesting for your members? Yes.
Well, I think for our members, the most interesting thing is the companies that will grow out of this matching capital and out of these business angels investors. Some of them will be sort of what we call investor ready, and they'll be interesting for seed funds and venture capital funds. So for our members, it's about creating new companies to invest in. Some of them, for some of them, seed funds or venture funds or buyout funds won't be the right owners. But for some of them, I think it will, or we hope it will.
Yes, thank you. So then we keep going. There's someone on the back first.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. You are great up there. My name is Ingar Benson, and I'm presently starting up an incubator and accelerator program named Hubs of Startups. And this money from Innovation Norway could be a godsend gift for us. However, as we're sitting here with the guys from Startup Lab and all the big, let's call it incubators and programs around us, will you guys look at new initiatives like ourselves? And how will you make the money available? This is more on a technicality question. You got 100 million, 50 million for incubators. Will we be able to apply for part of that money? Yes, but we don't know what kind of companies we will get into the incubator during the fall next year. So my question is, how will you distribute this money? How will you do these kind of things? And we are focusing on fintech, so we're like the bad, we're in tech and fintech, so not very popular these times. We're from Oslo, and I'm a guy, so I probably have I'm down on this list, so I'm losing edge here. But how will you distribute this kind of money? Will you say, okay, you get 5 million, you have to match with 5 million, so you put them in your account and do whatever you want with it, or how will this work? Just a question about that.
Yes, good question. As I said, it will be announced. It will be a call, and you will have to apply, and there will be certain criteria that you have to fulfill to be able to manage the money. And as you said, there will be a split. There will not be only one company managing 50 million. There will be a share between, I think, 5, 6 different kind of organizations. Was that an answer?
He was asking if he could get some of that money, I think.
Can I just comment?
Yes, Daniel.
I can't answer, of course, for Innovation Norway, but I think that, just as a venture fund or an investor, is, when he's investing in a company, he's looking at the people, the team, who are they? Do they have the drive, the competence, the ambition, everything? I think Innovation Norway should be actually looking in the same way when they are looking at the people who should handle this money. They should of course have some formal criteria to check, like a checklist to see that okay, they are within the sphere that they should be, but they should actually look at the people. What kind of competence and track record do they have as people? We are investing in people that are going to handle some money on behalf of the government to make things happen for other people again. So, so if you can convince Innovation Norway that you are one of those competent guys that actually can make things happen with this sack of money, it shouldn't be more complicated than that.
Is it on?
Yes.
Okay, so just one short follow-up. Why only 5 or 6 companies? You got 50 million giving out to incubators. Why don't you give it out to 10, 15 smaller initiatives that could place this into less than 1 million NOK per company? Why 1 to 3 million per company? Why don't you just say, okay, you guys get 3 million, 5 million? For us, this would be a great thing. But for Startup Lab, maybe it just will be a small portion of a bigger... this is just an example, not me, the big guys, and I got bad guys over there. But you see what I mean? Why don't you let us go down in scale and
That's a good
increase the
question.
amount of companies?
Yes, yes. The amount 1 to 3 million is settled. That's decided from the government, so we can't change that, even though the suggestion is good. But there has to be 1 to 3 million. That's the scheme.
So the investment needs to be 1 to 3 million
Per company.
And then matched. Right?
And then matched. That's right.
I can comment that. They would get. You should help them to get the etableringsstipend 1 and 2, right? And what we see is that that's easy to get. I mean, the amount has been used from 800 to 500 to 300 this year. Next year would be easier, and hopefully Innovation Norway will be spread it more equal out during the year. So the challenge for the startups, as we see it, is that for those who want to have this money and need this money, is to have the money after etableringsstipend number 2. So setting up an incubator is a really bad business idea from my perspective, but it's a part of the vehicle that you're trying to set up in order to find good companies that you can invest in, which is fantastic. The advice to Innovation Norway is that you should have a long perspective on the type of investment environment, early stage investment environment companies that you invest into. And establish stipend 1 and 2 is quite easy. If you can't explain such things in your application, you shouldn't be allowed to get that money from the first place. So you should have a longer perspective, not 1 year perspective, but you should be the money you give them in order to actually the money goes directly to the startups, not to the environment. So you need to look upon what you believe is the sustainability of those persons or that environment that you give the money to. Because if you have that as a bidding round, like you have in the, let's say, the healthcare sector, it might be that one hospital get all the business within knee operations in Oslo. And the next year, and the next bidding round, another hospital get it. So you won't be able to support that type of capital, early stage capital environment or ecosystem. So you should have at least a 3-year perspective when you select, right? I think that's extremely important, because if you support 5 guys or five environments in different places, and the next year they won't get anything, that initiative is dead after you don't give it to them, right? So a longer perspective it's very important.
Yeah.
And hopefully I answered your question.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. Did you have a comment on that, or was it in your? I have a comment. But... Yes, because there is others. Yes, so coming back to you.
Cool, thanks. I'm Geir. I'm maybe one of the few companies here who actually have gotten a matching grant just like this. We actually went to Singapore to get it, and it was about the same terms. And what we kind of experienced there was that it took so long time, it was so much work to get the fund that it wasn't really worth the time. So please make sure it's not much work to get the money. It's not much. 1 to 3 million NOK is not much money, so it can't be a lot of work. So please make sure that happens, and please pay on time and everything like that, because waiting is a hassle. And answer quick. I know it's fine. Just get a no. Please make the timing quick as well. And I also want to kind of answer what Rikke said first. You said spread the money, right, on different kind of companies. I think that's terrible, honestly. You have to work with, you have to focus, right? That's what you learn when you start a business, is to focus. And you are saying spread 100 million NOK into different things. Terrible idea. So please go into one kind of industry. I mean, EdTech is cool. Please put everything there. But find where you want to put the money in and stay there. Because some of them will fail, and then you can learn from that and start in the same kind of business area, which will make the money last longer, I think. And Kjartan said something about not experienced people and stuff like that. Well, that's what's the money's for, isn't it? To make the angels more kind of, to make the angels learn more on how to invest. They also have to fail. So that's part of the kind of the whole thing. So please make it easy to get the money, make it quick, and focus. It's kind of like non-questions, but begging from me.
Thank you. Yes. There is one in the front first. Okay. Did you have any comment to that?
No, I just I see your point, and I think that especially the point about, you know, continue to focus on the same sector. So if you fail, you learn something that you can bring into your next round. However, I still think, even though you think it's a terrible idea, that Norway has so much to gain from looking at various sectors. And even though one group should focus on one industry, then perhaps there's another group somewhere else that there are experts on a third or fourth industry or sector. But agree to disagree.
Thank you.
Ina von Turov. 5 weeks ago, we had an international arrangement in Oslo called Oslo Innovation Week, and it was fantastically well organized. The content, however, was not as impressive, and the reason I say that to you is because I took the effort of talking to as many of the international investors who arrived in town as possible so that I could summarize their feedback to you. And after I've done that, which I promised to do quickly, I have a question for Daniel and a question for Rikke. So I would summarize this feedback into supply-side issues and demand-side issues. When I say supply-side, I mean the supply of ideas, us, in this room, people who want to build stuff. The general feedback was that the pitching level was really not very good. Now, one lady who was in the Forbes 100 most powerful women in the world, she actually said to one of the presenters, "What brand of cannabis are you on?" That is no joke. She really said this in the pitching competition. Now, my question is, why were they among the finalists? Seriously, who vetted them? The second main issue was that there was a very little understanding of the startup process. And I understand that we as a nation don't have a structured experience of this as in Silicon Valley or Tel Aviv. But the point is, when someone stands up in a plenary session and says, "How do I make shops pay me for my idea?" That's kind of the wrong end of the stick. You're supposed to figure out how others make money before you ask how you get paid. The good news is, this is not rocket science, this is trainable. So here is my question for Daniel. Is that something that your organization could have a structured training program for. Before you even apply for anything, go through this so you don't waste people's time. Once you have ticked off a couple of the basic things so you don't waste people's time, you would get a higher filter. But quickly, before I will also just move to Rikke before I lose momentum, because I also want to cover the demand side. And again, this is feedback from international investors. In England, there is this fantastic program called Dragon's Den, where you have 4 billionaires who sit there and they listen to entrepreneurs, and if they think an idea is good, they will pay a percentage of what they think that business is worth and give their time and mentorship. Now, the bad side about that program is a lot of it is done for entertainment, and you have a high also percentage of ideas that are really not very good because they mean to make the audience laugh. My question to you and your organization, which I also posed to your predecessor, is if you had vetted, let's say, 3 really good ideas, could you set up one lunch meeting for Christian Ringnes, Petter Stordalen, Stein Erik Hagen, where those 3 are in the room, and you might waste their time once, twice, but all it takes is for one great idea, and these guys would really compete for that idea. And then your organization would be the place to go to hear these ideas. Why not set up something like that just to start? What have you got to lose apart from 1 or 2 hours of their time? Thank you.
Yeah. Should I answer the first one? I mean, making people more professional about how they present their companies, of course, is important. We are not actually an organization that would take such a role, but there are. I mean, I'm looking at Knut here from Connect. They have this springbrett process, which is actually designed to do exactly that. And they put up mini panels of dragon's nest with slightly nicer dragons, perhaps, than the ones that you mentioned. So they're actually doing that, and so we cooperate with them and we support that. And many of our members or incubators or TTOs are cooperating with Connect. So we think that's a good way to handle it. Also, since I'm talking about them, they have a new initiative called the Nordic Ban, which is a marketplace for and a software and also physical investor networks that are being established now. And that is also about something about this meeting point money, 30 million, kind of initiative that should be, such initiatives should be supported by this kind of money that Innovation Norway has, because in that way you can build some of the infrastructure to make companies more visible, and it goes very well hand in hand with what they're already doing with professionalizing the presentation or the pitches for the companies. I didn't have the time during Oslo Innovation Week to visit everything. I organized 3 things myself, and I was kind of tired from doing that. So I didn't have the chance to hear a lot of pitches, but I agree that the quality was variable. But I think that's also something that, I mean, Oslo Innovation Week is kind of like a dugnad, you know? It's not like Slash, which is more professional thing. So it has its kind of charm. But if they're going to do this pitch event next year, maybe they should, take that input and figure out how could they actually prepare long before the week itself to kind of filter out the best cases, and then the quality will go up, I think. And they could do that with Connect or other people. Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you for a great idea. I've watched Dragon's Den. It's a great show. We don't actually have high net worth among our members, but it's definitely an idea that I'll take to our members and see if they like it. Some of them are here. I'll talk to them after.
Okay, thank you. We're about to going for landing, but there is 3 more questions. So, welcome. Yes.
My name is Jan Erik Hereid. I'm from Alliance Venture, representing one of the few Norwegian seed and venture funds. First of all, you asked Rikke what the members are thinking, and as one of the members, I really applaud this initiative. I think it's great. And as Thomas said, it's not 100, it's not a billion, it's only 100 million. So what we hope is that this initiative will be used wisely and that there will be much more to come in the future. Because it's so important that we see more supporting startups so that we can get a good deal flow. Having said that, I think it's even more challenging when it comes to the next phase. If you look globally, there is more and more startups being funded, but there is not more venture capital to take these companies to the next level, meaning that the threshold to get to venture funding is getting harder and harder. And in Norway, we have, over the past 15 years, seen a huge decline in seed and venture funds. So today, it's just too few of us. I would like to see much more competition. I would like to see more seed funds. I would like to see more venture firms. And in fact, the way we work today is that due to the lack of venture funds in Norway, we have to build our own ecosystems. And that comes to both angel investors and venture investors. So in our fund, we have 25 serial entrepreneurs, including Geir Førre and others who have invested in our fund, so that we work with these serial entrepreneurs to make sure that we come to them with deals, and they are working with us and co-invest with us in the deals that we do. And more than that, we also then have relationships with a number of global venture funds. As an example, I can say that in the last year, there's so much going on. We have seen more than 600 deals in just a little more than a year. 600 Norwegian tech deals. And even though the quality is variable, I can assure you there's a lot of good companies there. So the selection process for us is challenging, but we have invested in 6 companies in the last year. And in all of these companies, we have succeeded getting international venture funds co-investing with us. Nordic venture funds like Norge, Creandum, German funds like Point 9 and Target Partners, and US funds like First Round Capital and Slow Ventures. But I must say that to get international investors invest in a Norwegian company is challenging, because why should they come to Norway and invest when there's so much going on in their local communities? So I think that to have international investors is important, because it's a kind of way of benchmarking that the deals are, hold a good level of quality. But still, I think that it would be highly needed to have more players like ourselves. It's too few of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, there is someone here. Okay. You were the next.
Yeah,
There's
okay,
someone-
so
Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on what the lady here said about the quality of the startup pitches. And that reminds me of something else that was said about the culture, the Norwegian culture and the ecosystem that's building up. But first of all, great initiative from Innovasjon Norway, and a great panel and interesting discussions throughout. But I think that one part that's missing from the discussion is that I think there's a huge difference between a technology cluster, a TTO, and an incubator, and what we call seed accelerators. And currently in Norway, we have no pure seed accelerators, and they're usually focusing on what you're missing, which is the pitch prep and the growth metrics and the professionalize to make the startups investment ready, right? So I think let's not forget the accelerators in this mix, and I'm very interested in diving into, because I think the representative behind me is almost like a crossover. They have active the Founders Fund, and it actually works a little bit like a acceleration program. So my question to the panel would be your thoughts on this, and specifically, I think that the main differences are time to market, because I think an incubator, as it has been done for years in Norway, is maybe not moving fast enough. So you have to have incentivized people, teams moving fast, and they have to be investment ready. And I think that's a little bit different from a TTO or a cluster or an incubator, where you basically have great rent and nice people around you. So, love to hear the panel's thoughts on this. And it's not a criticism. I'm not trying to criticize. I'm just saying, it's a difference.
First of all, it's interesting to see already how the applicants are positioning themselves now for this money.
Can I comment?
Yes.
I mean, the whole idea, the way the scheme is looking now, is that it is open for you guys and everyone. So we should allow for this diversity to actually happen. So this is, I mean, the name of the meeting is Fueling the Startup Scene. So you're the fuel. I'm not going to use a match, but but I think that I mean, accelerators are like yourself or Inga. I know you're starting out one in fintech. It's great that things like that are happening. It's enriching the whole scene. And they're going to be operating a little bit differently from like tech clusters or TTOs, but we have to allow for this diversity because they're each doing important jobs within their part of the ecosystem, and if they can get together and actually talk a little bit more with each other, it's a good thing, like we're doing today. Also, I would like to say that actually there are some accelerator programs also being developed by the existing incubators. There's one energy, what's it called again? Tech makers, which is for the energy sector, which is obviously a sector where Norway is really strong, and they are doing their first demo day in 1 week from now, 1st of December. At Fornebu, and they have been backed by Statoil, Aker, Kongsberg Group, and all the big kind of players. So I think that's one thing that's going to happen, that the incubators will renew kind of their proposition and their way of working, which Startup Lab has been a front runner for doing that, and I think a lot more will follow. Also, we will have initiatives like yourself and others that will come from many spaces, which is great as well. So all in all, if we handle this money carefully and wisely, I'm sure it's going to be like you said, the money will grow and they will be fed back into the system. So my plea is that everyone, please follow the good intentions by both the government and Innovation in Norway and handle this money wisely. If it is a success, it will grow by itself, and we will actually, get more. And one thing, if I can comment on the venture thing, because I think that's really a shame that Norway, which is such a rich country, especially the state, is stinking rich. Why can't we have like an Argentum for the venture scene? I think that would be a very logical step at this moment of time. So at least we will be working for that going forward with the government, because they need to kind of just reposition the way they think about their own venture capital instruments. Yeah.
Thank you. There is a few more, and we're about to go in for landing, but there will be one behind there and a few in the front, and then we sum up. So welcome.
Yeah, I think my name is Marcus Røvik. I think I represent the most important question here, and this is the event for fueling the startup scene. And every event, venture capitalists always talking about fueling small startups, but I'm 21. I represent probably the youngest segment of the startup world. And some of my friends they lack knowledge. Their ideas are shit, and that's just how it is. And no one of them, just few of them, have read Lean Startup and the school, like how we educate young entrepreneurs now. And the future of young entrepreneurs is looking dark, because all of you, this scene of you guys, you're forgetting the next 10 years of entrepreneurs, the segment that will come up with you're lacking knowledge and then lacking inspiration. Many people are coming up with ideas which is like Tinder for food, and there is no fresh water come out of that ideas. So venture capitalists, all the successful people, have to go to Ungt Entreprenørskap and inspire the youngest, the 16-year-old small entrepreneur spirit. Sorry for English. But you have to inspire them and also pull the science environments and all the important subjects and science environments to these young people and inspire them to make great ideas and also give them relevant knowledge in an early stage. And the Emirates are giving $80 billion to the development of the economy after the oil. $80 billion. 100 million Norwegian kroners is nothing. Forget investing that in startups. Give that to the environment and the community to educate them, to give them lean startup certification. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have you heard of the EMAX conference?
Yes, I've been there.
You've been there.
I am a mentor there every year.
Good. It's some gentleman on the front here now. That's the next. It's the next.
Thank you. I'm going to follow up on what the gentleman just in front of me said. Basically, this is not a critique for the Norwegian ecosystem, but what I think is needed is more like 500 startups. Talking as an entrepreneur, basically what they offer is, okay, they get 2%, we get $10,000. It's not much, but it's at least to get something started, right? To develop an MVP or something. Also the whole mentality of how to think as a startup. Try to get the first customer, prioritize that, not necessarily Innovation Norway, even though it's fantastic that we actually have those opportunities. I mean, it gives you superpower. If you get 500,000 that you can put into equity, into development and stuff, I mean, you compared to, for example, entrepreneurs that you're competing with in Tel Aviv, they don't have that. So of course that can be a benefit, but it has to be a combination between having the right mentality and also using the resources around you. Another thing that I think is really good with that type of acceleration program is that they put you in the right ecosystem. You get the network, you get the connection, you get help with pitch competitions, for example, if that's what you need. So just the fact of not only focusing on like the co-working spaces, even though they're fantastic. I've been a member in Mesh for 3 years. I support, I think what they're doing is fantastic. But we also need to look into what we could do better, right? And in this case, it's definitely incubator program, just to accelerate the whole ecosystem change. Because I don't necessarily agree with you. I don't think it would be better to actually start a startup in Oslo or in Norway compared to San Francisco, because I think that if I would go to San Francisco and I would pitch to some people, I think it would be much easier to actually get resources connected to the idea than it is here. A term is tungrot. So I think if you could actually create ecosystem where you could take an idea from that hasn't been developed, for example, even though it is a shitty idea, Tinder for food. If I would come up with that and I would go to the incubator and they would say, you know what, this is fantastic. Let's put a team around you, let's do this, and then they could guide you in terms of creating a sustainable business. I think we need more of that type of arenas. That's it.
Okay, now we have only time for 2 more questions, and we have to stop. I'm sorry. Seems like we could go on for hours. Yeah, that's good. But it's you now, and you will be the next. Okay.
Just a comment to what you said. I think the Oslo is a fantastic place to start. What you read in media and on online, you only read the success stories. So we have many people that have been there. You don't read the bad stories about Silicon Valley and so on. So I disagree. The other thing is what you need to try to do is to develop mini ecosystems for capital investment, right? That's what you're trying to do. You're not supposed to have people to start incubators, but you know, incubator could be a model how to invest, right? So another input, you know, the longer perspective, I think it's important for you guys when you support these ecosystem systems or initiatives. But also I think you should have a requirement to say how do you build that MENA ecosystem? So, because if you give the money to 2 guys or 2 women, and they invest in their friends, and they have a happy life, and they might succeed, I don't know. But you need to have a requirement beyond delivering the money to some startup. They need to have a vision, they need to have a passion to build something that is sustainable. And that sustainability must be based on a mini ecosystem for capital investments, right? I think that's very important, because otherwise it won't work.
Okay, thank you. That was the last word. I'm sorry we don't have time for any more, but I would like to ask you, do you have something to
close?
Yeah, yes?
Of course.
Well,
yeah, I have
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, where to start? First of all, we have spoken very little about the startups themselves today. Wasn't necessarily the topic, but we do have to remember that it is not the environments themselves that we're fueling, even though you should get paid and can eat fairly well. You are put on this earth to help other companies. And we must never lose sight of that, or you must never lose sight of it. This money is to help startups succeed. So you have to look beyond the kind of internal positioning that we already see in here today. And I can imagine when you get the applicants in, this will just increase in scale, and you will get a lot of emails over the next couple of months. So you have to have a very, very good system in picking these environments. Sorry. It's not necessarily so that it's easier to put distribution of capital out to others. Kind of the first idea, yeah, that's great because the environment can take care of themselves, but you also add additional risk. So you need just to have a kick-ass system to that, so that it really supports the startups, because that's what we need, succeeding startups. Also, as that was one, number 2, we need as a company to become less democratic. I know it's in our hearts and minds that we should support everything at all times, but that's not really how you build a success story. So Geir is absolutely correct. I know it's nice to say that this money should go to everyone, but it is not reasonable to think that we can fuel both a healthy fashion industry, a healthy edtech industry, and a healthy fintech industry from 100 million. So be wise about how you funnel this into some kind of means, some kind of end goal. Third thing is, and I sense this in this room already today, we're not quite there that we dare as a startup nation or as an emerging startup nation to be critical about ourselves. And that's good. We have success stories, we have oil, we have some people up and down the coastline that have built something. But, and I'm not being kind of, I'm not being...
patronizing.
Patronizing, thank you. Now you are patronizing.
I was trying to help.
We need to have 2 thoughts in our head at the same time. Yes, we have a lot of good things. Yes, we have capital. But no, we're not very good at this in general. We don't have the mentality. We don't. When I say the amount of money that we're raising now to people, the most common feedback are, oh, that was a lot. Are you sure you're worth that much? If I were to say that money in another culture, another startup culture, I say, wow, that's great. You're getting that much? Wow, you must really have something cool going on. So we aren't quite there yet that we dare to believe that we are as big as we hope to be. And I think you had the best point here today. Thank you. And you had your hand up for about 45 minutes, so you're also the most patient here today, which is a good quality for a startup. We do tend to send a lot of subpar companies to represent ourselves, also abroad. I was visiting an event that you held in New York recently, some kind of program you have, and to be quite honest, and no one are allowed to quote me on this, I was at times embarrassed. We only have so many shots at communicating what we're doing here abroad, and we can't let our democratic social thinking always get in the way for presenting the best we have. It's as a company is occupied with storytelling, so should we as a startup nation. Fourth, this initiative is kick-ass. It's just what we need. We need more of it. We need in different phases of a company's life. We already have a fantastic initial support with a combination of about 1 million NOK with the first kind of support system, which is no one can hope to match globally. We have a lot of good things. More good things are coming. We have this huge bank account, and I have a feeling that more and more of that cash is going to be deployed into innovation. We are definitely on the right track. And I totally disagree with you. If you look at the risk profile, and that you should as a startup, if you come to a conclusion that you would start your company in San Francisco versus Oslo right now, then I don't think you have a very good risk assessment in yourself or in your company. Sweden might be better. That's kind of just marginally different, but Norway or the Nordics is a fantastic place to start a company. Fantastic place on all metrics. All metrics.
Thank you. Thank you. Rikke, would you like to?
Yeah, I'd just quite like to finish off on a positive note and echo our member Alliance Ventures. The matching capital arrangement is a great idea. We hope that it will be spent wisely, and there were a lot of suggestions here today for how it can be organized. And as Daniel was saying earlier, we hope that there's more to come for many years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would actually like to comment what you said. I think continuity is important. So I would rather recommend that you choose carefully and few environments in the start. That was actually the whole idea from our side. Because if we don't have quality at the start, we're not going to get it later. So we have to start with the best possible environments first, and then you can expand it slowly. You know, it's like walking, crawling before you're walking. Which is usually wise also for small children. Also, it was nice to hear your ambitions as an entrepreneur, and I think that's what we need. That we need more people that I read your blog post about WIMP and that story, that you have that ambition to actually build new Norwegian great companies that are becoming well known in the world. And of course, I'm from Sweden myself, so I mean, I see that we have a completely different kind of, you know, IKEA, H&M, and Spotify. Everything is consumer oriented. Not everything, but a lot of it is. So it's different here, but we could still create great companies, and we are at the verge of something here. And I think today has been a really good conversation with you guys and everyone here. So. I'm from Abelia and from Finn's side. I'm really happy that we are at this spot now, because it happened a little bit more quickly than I thought when we started the process of kind of lobbying for this politically. But I think that this is a great start, and if everyone handles everything well, everyone from Innovation Norway, from the entrepreneurs, for the investors, and all the names that these incubators, accelerators, TDOs, and whatever they're called, do a good job, we're going to be sitting here in a few years' time and actually have some good successes to celebrate. So keep up and start up the good work.
Thank you. And yes. And as it has been said, we shall have a long-term perspective on this money, on this capital. And that's why we have to succeed. We have to spend the money carefully and make sure there is success stories to tell in a couple of years. And as it has been so much attention on this new capital, we spontaneously just invited you all here to share it with you and share the opinions. And thank you for being so enthusiastic and sharing and bringing up all the good perspectives and ideas that you brought today. So thank you very much for your time. And especially thank you to Kjartan, Rikke, and Daniel for your time and for your very the way you did the panel. Thank you very much. Give them another applause. So thank you. Thank you.